Previously on Wolhwa, a young scholar fell on a mountain path in a storm. A fox spirit who should have walked past carried him home instead. She marked the first day on a calendar. 1:99 to go. She did not ask herself why she had saved him. That was, perhaps, the first mistake. That same night, the village below. The inn was closing. 3 men lingered over their last drinks. 3 men, 3 responses. 3 different things revealed. Park noticed her when she walked in. Any man with eyes would have noticed her. His second thought, arriving immediately after the first. My wife has a fever tonight. He finished his drink. He went home. Kim did not look at all. He had decided years ago not to look at things that would make him want what he had already chosen not to want. Lee looked, but what he saw was not what the others saw. He saw a young woman, alone, at night.
Miss, it's late. In this area there have been incidents recently. Strange ones. You shouldn't be walking alone at night.
Dan-hee looked at him. 500 years old, being warned about herself, about her own mountain. Thank you, I'll be careful. Lee went home to his wife. He would never know he had warned a Gumiho about herself. And then there was Choi. Choi Seobang was not a bad man. This is important to understand. He had a wife he loved, in his way. A daughter, 7 years old, who called him father, in a voice that could stop time. The clinical term for what happened next is not moral failure. It is a failure of self-transcendence, the ability to orient oneself towards something larger than immediate desire. He had had a difficult week. Sales were poor. He and his wife had argued, nothing serious. The kind that leaves a residue of small resentments. And now, there was this woman. First voice, go home, your daughter is asleep, your wife is waiting. Second voice, just for a moment, just to talk. Nothing will happen. The second voice always has better arguments. It has had more practice. Choi followed Dan-hee out the door. The road was dark. Dan-hee walked ahead. Not fast, not slow, just walking. Choi followed, telling himself many things he did not believe. She was further ahead than she should have been. He walked faster. She was further still. He broke into a run, and then she was gone. Choi stopped. The mountain path was empty in every direction.
Hello, miss.
Silence. And then, Dan-hee dropped from the tree above, with a single aerial rotation, landing directly in front of him, as though gravity were a suggestion she had chosen to follow today. Her eyes changed. Gold, the pupils narrowing to vertical slits. And behind her, shadows in the moonlight. 6 of them, moving slowly, like something breathing. She smiled. There was no malice in it. That was the last thing Choi saw clearly, that there was no malice in it. Just curiosity, just hunger, just 500 years of being exactly what she was. Across the mountain, Seola did not chase anyone. She never did. She had been watching Merchant Bay for 3 days. Merchant Bay had a wife. He had 2 sons. He also had a habit of watching certain women in the market in a way his wife would not have approved of. Seola did not hunt randomly. She chose. The men who looked away, she let them go. She waited for the ones who didn't. In her own twisted way, she believed she was delivering a verdict. Merchant Bay came down the road, later than he should have been, slightly drunk. The specific kind of slightly drunk that makes men feel like the rules that apply to them normally might be flexible tonight. He saw Seola. She did not move, did not speak, did not smile, did nothing at all. He walked toward her. The most revealing thing about a person is not what they do when temptation is active. It is what they do in the moment before they decide whether to engage with it at all. Merchant Bay tried to run. Eventually, they always tried to run. Seola walked. Every direction he turned, she was already there. Not running, walking, with the unhurried certainty of something that has never needed to hurry in 1200 years. Her eyes caught the moonlight. Gold. 9 shadows behind her. She did not smile. That was the difference between her and Danhee. Danhee found this interesting. Seola found it inevitable. Morning came. In the house at the end of the South Road, Choi's wife set the breakfast table. She waited. Her daughter came to the table. "Where's father?" Choi's wife looked at the empty seat, then at the window, then at the mountain. She had waited before? She told herself. He was delayed. Business. Her face did not believe this. He was probably delayed. Eat your breakfast. The daughter ate. The wife did not. Nobody made him follow her. Nobody made him leave the road. He chose. The mountain does not choose its victims. That is the part of the story people prefer not to examine too closely. High above, the cottage was quiet, while the village below was losing another husband, another father. Wolhwa was checking a fever. She pressed the back of her hand to Junseo's forehead. The fever had broken in the night. He opened his eyes. She was already withdrawing her hand, as though she hadn't quite meant to leave it there as long as she had. The same mountain, the same night, an entirely different kind of story.
Chapter 3. The Days in the Cottage, Days 7 through 21. On the 7th day, he asked about her family.
"You've been here long, alone. Is there no family to return to?"
Wolhwa kept her eyes on the herbs she was sorting. "My father was ill, a lung sickness. I sold everything to pay for treatment. The mountain air was supposed to help. He passed last year. There's nothing to go back to." A clean story. Sad, simple, credible. She had told it before. There is a specific quality to a lie that has been told many times. It comes out too smoothly, too complete. Real grief is ragged at the edges. Junseo was a scholar. He noticed. He filed it away. Wolhwa noticed him noticing. Today, it sat differently, like something slightly the wrong size in a place it used to fit. On the 9th day, he brought her flowers. Mountain wildflowers, small purple ones. He had picked them without fully deciding to. They were growing near the path. Wolhwa looked at the flowers, then at him, then at the flowers again. She had no idea what to do with them. Wolhwa had read every book written about human emotion. She had observed humans for 1,000 years, but observation and experience are not the same thing. She had never been given flowers. She did not have an instinctive response. In 1,000 years, nobody had brought her flowers. Not because she was unworthy of them, because nobody had known to. She took them, said nothing, put them in the water bowl on the window ledge. That night, she noticed she kept looking at them. She told herself it was nothing. On the 11th day, she went to the waterfall to do laundry. He followed, uninvited, carrying half the load before she could say anything. They worked in silence. The kind of silence that has stopped being uncomfortable and started being something else. At one point, their hands reached for the same cloth at the same moment. His fingers grazed hers. She pulled back. He pulled back. Both pretended it hadn't happened. Physical contact between mere strangers activates the nervous system in ways that are difficult to suppress and impossible to unfeel. He noticed how cold her hands were. Not cool. Cold. The kind of cold that doesn't make sense in summer. He filed that away. On the 13th day, she went to gather herbs. He came along again. She showed him which plants were medicine, which were poison, the distinctions between them.
How do you know all of this?
I've had time to learn.
How much time?
These go in the basket.
On the way back, he carried the basket. She didn't tell him to. She didn't tell him not to. She walked beside him and tried to remember the last time anyone had simply walked beside her. She could not remember. 1,000 years, and she could not remember. 5. Sewing. On the 15th day, she mended his travel clothes. He sat across from her, reading. or pretending to read. He kept looking up. Her hands moved with absolute precision, the needle moving in and out without hesitation, without error.
You're very capable at many things.
I've had to be.
Who taught you?
Books mostly. You can learn most things from books if you read enough of them, and you have enough time.
She bit the thread, held up the mended cloth, examined it, set it aside. He watched her, thinking. 6. The paintings. On the 17th day, he found the paintings. He unrolled one, the mountain at dawn, ink on hanji paper, the brushwork, not the work of a student. The work of someone who had painted the same subject so many times, the hand no longer needed to think. He unrolled another, and another, and then he stopped. The village, again and again, painted from high above, always at night, always with the lights on. He counted them. 47. 47 paintings of the same village lights. And then, something else. Tucked between two paintings, a smaller piece of hanji paper. Very old, yellowed at the edges, worn from being rolled and unrolled many times. A man's face, not a famous man, not a scholar, someone with broad shoulders, a strong jaw, kind eyes, a slight private smile. The face of someone painted from memory so many times that every line was certain. Junseo looked at the face. He did not recognize it. He was certain of that. And yet, something, some quality of the expression, something he could not name, something that produced in him a feeling he also could not name, not recognition, something older than recognition. Wolhwa appeared in the doorway. He held up the small painting.
Who is this?
She went very still. Not the stillness of someone caught. The stillness of someone who has been asked a question they have never been asked before. She took the painting from him, held it, looking down at it.
I don't know who he is. I've never known. He comes in dreams sometimes. Just his face. And when I wake up, there is a grief I can't explain, and a longing I have no name for, as though I lost something I can't remember having.
He looked at her face as she said the word grief. And then he looked at the painting again. The human mind is remarkably resistant to conclusions it does not want to reach. Junseo had the evidence. What he lacked was the willingness to follow the interpretation to its destination. A door opening in a room he didn't know was there. He handed the painting back. She took it carefully. The way you take back something you are glad to have returned. On the 18th day, he found the books, the Analects, Mencius, 3 volumes of history so old the paper had darkened, Tang Dynasty poetry, and at the end of the shelf, a text so rare he had seen one copy in his life, in the palace library, under glass. He pulled it out. The spine was cracked. The margins were annotated, her handwriting, small and precise.
Where did you get this?
Time ago.
This text is rare. There are perhaps 3 copies in existence. One is in the palace. Where is the other?
I wouldn't know about the other one.
Chapter 3. The passage on grief. I've always thought the standard interpretation misses something. What do you make of it?
He sat down on the floor with the book. She sat across from him, considered. Then she answered, precisely, thoughtfully, with a reference he hadn't expected, and then a counter-argument, and then a question back at him that took him a moment to answer. They talked for 2 hours. When he looked up, the afternoon was gone. Intellectual rapport is among the rarest and most destabilizing forms of connection. Junseo had passed the highest examination in Joseon. He had not expected to be challenged in his own area of expertise by a woman on a mountain. Who are you? He didn't say it, but he thought it, for the first time, with something other than suspicion. On the 19th day, she was painting. He watched from the doorway. She was doing the village again, the same village she had painted 47 times.
Can I try?
She looked up, something moved across her face.
Sit here.
She showed him the grip, the angle. When his first attempt came out wrong, she reached over and guided his hand. Her fingers were cold. He had known they would be. But for just a moment, he thought he felt them warm slightly, against his hand. Just for a moment. Then she pulled away. Physical warmth as metaphor is almost too obvious. But the body does not consult the mind about its metaphors. Wolhwa's hands had been cold for 1,000 years. For a moment, they were not. 9. The village, and what Junseo found. On the 21st day, Junseo went down to the village. Practical reasons, medicine, information. He found the notice on the wall of the market, his own face, drawn in ink. Close, but not quite right. The way official portraits are never quite right. Below it, traitor, wanted, reward. There is a specific experience in seeing your own name declared an enemy of the state. Junseo had known this moment was coming. Knowing did not make it smaller. He did not run. Running would draw attention. He walked away from the notice at the careful pace of a man who has seen nothing unusual. The soldiers were everywhere, moving in groups of 4 or 5, scanning faces, checking men against the description they had memorized. He moved through the market like a current through water, present but not quite part of it. His hat pulled low, his eyes forward, everything controlled. He came back with the things he needed, and also 2 books, the kind women read in Joseon, Gumiho, Chunhyangjeon. He stopped in front of the bookshop without fully intending to, and a pair of flower shoes, blue silk, gold embroidery. He stood in the market holding the shoes and asked himself what he was doing. She lived alone on a mountain. She had nowhere to wear them. He bought them anyway. The decision to give a gift is rarely as simple as it appears. Gifts are acts of imagination. You must first imagine the recipient in the context of receiving them. Junseo had imagined Wolhwa in flower shoes. He had imagined her going somewhere worth dressing for, the gift. He set them on the table without ceremony.
I passed the bookshop.
She looked at the books first. Gumiho.
I know this one.
Have you read it?
Long time ago.
Then she saw the shoes. She picked them up very carefully. The way you hold something you are not sure you are allowed to have.
These are for going to the village. I don't go to the village often.
I know that too.
Thank you.
Very small. Very quiet. The voice of someone for whom this particular kindness was entirely new terrain. Thank you is one of the first things children learn to say, and one of the last things adults learn to mean. This was the first time it had cost Wolhwa something to say it. That night, after he was asleep, she took out the shoes, sat with them by the lamp. For a long time, nobody had ever bought her flower shoes. In 1,000 years, nobody had known to. She did not cry. She did not yet know how. That would come later, with the humanity she had not yet earned. But something moved in her chest that she did not have a name for.
그대의 눈을 가만히 바라보면 잊혀진 옛 기억이 스쳐가는데 무언가 만질 듯 또 잡힐 듯한데 안개처럼 흩어져 부서져 가네 천년의 세월을 나 홀로 걸으며 얼어붙은 가슴이라 믿어왔는데 내가 왜 이렇게
That night, high in the mountain, above the tree line, 3 sisters. They had met here for centuries, this specific rock, this specific view, the village lights far below like scattered embers. Danhee arrived first. dropping from the pine above with that casual aerial rotation she had never quite grown out of. Seola arrived walking, as she always did. Wolhwa was already there, sitting at the edge, looking down at the lights, as she almost always was. Danhee mentioned, almost lightly, that the village was blaming them for the missing chickens and dogs. Seola was unbothered. They were not the only things living on this mountain, she said. If she wanted an animal, there was no shortage in the forest. Whatever was taking livestock from the village was something smaller, something less careful. A half-made fox, a young wolf that hadn't yet learned caution. They should simply stay invisible, as always. Then, quietly, Seola said something she rarely said. Danhee, she reminded her, was too young to remember the year the Taoists came. They had heard a rumor that a fox bead could extend a human life, and they had come for it with traps and fire. There had been 11 of them once in these mountains, an extended family, cousins, elders. 3 had survived. The 3 sitting on this rock were those 3. A long silence followed. Wolhwa, still looking at the village lights she had painted 47 times, said quietly that not all humans were like that. Seola agreed. Not all. Just enough of them. That was why, she said, she chose so carefully now. The men she selected had already shown her exactly what they were. She didn't create their nature. She simply responded to it. Then Danhee, in her usual unbothered way, mentioned that she had been watching the scholar. From the trees, the week before, he had given his coins to a child who dropped them in the mud and helped an old woman carry her bundle up a hill, never knowing anyone was watching. People who perform kindness for an audience are easy to spot, Danhee said. He hadn't been performing. He suited Wolhwa, she thought. He listened to her, really listened, the way most men never bothered to. Seola turned to Wolhwa and asked what she thought. Wolhwa was quiet for a long moment before she answered. He felt, she said, like someone she had known before. Not because of the boy in the snow. This was something else, something older, a pull she couldn't explain, stronger than it should have been for a stranger. A warmth with no name. A longing she couldn't locate, as though she had been looking for something her whole existence without knowing she was looking. And when he was near, the looking simply stopped. Seola's response was careful and old. 700 years ago, she said, she had felt something she also couldn't name. A warmth, a recognition, a certainty that it meant something real. He had come back later with torches. He's not that man, Wolhwa said. They never are, Seola answered, until they are. Wolhwa asked them both for one thing. Whatever happened, please, don't touch him. Don't touch his servant either. Seola said nothing, which was not agreement. Danhee, simply and without complication, said she wouldn't touch him. He was Wolhwa's. Seola turned her attention to a different matter then. The fox bead, which Danhee had apparently used in the village market for spending money. Seola reminded her sharply that the Yowu Guseol was not a coin purse. It was the concentrated essence of everything Danhee was. A human who held it absorbed her sight, her knowledge, 5 centuries of her experience. Danhee, entirely unrepentant, explained that the man had been so deep under her influence, he never realized what he'd held, never realized he'd paid for it, and never remembered any of it afterward. Just a pleasant feeling he couldn't place. The hairpins she'd bought were very pretty, she added. Seola closed her eyes, and then, looking at Wolhwa one last time, she said the thing that mattered most. She wasn't claiming all men were the same. She had lived 1,200 years, and she knew the capacity for betrayal didn't shrink in the presence of kindness. Sometimes it lived right beside it. I know, Wolhwa said. I have been careful for 1,200 years, Seola said. I know, Wolhwa said again. That's what worries me, Seola told her. The mountain held them all that night, the wounded one, the patient one, the unbothered one, in the cold dark of a summer evening. Far below, a man slept in a mountain cottage with no idea he had been the subject of this conversation, and no idea about a great many things that were true. That same night, Junseo could not sleep. He lay on his mat, staring at the low, dark ceiling, and found that his mind would not settle on any one thing. It kept circling back instead to the afternoon, to a boar. They had been gathering herbs further from the cottage than usual, near a thicket where Wolhwa said certain roots grew best after rain. He had been crouched, distracted, examining something she'd handed him, when he heard the crash of undergrowth and looked up to find a wild boar already closing the distance, head low, tusks catching the light, moving with the particular violence of an animal that has decided in an instant that you are the problem to be solved. He remembered the cold drop in his stomach. He remembered thinking, with strange clarity, that this was an absurd way for a wanted traitor to die. Not by the sword, but by a pig, on a mountain, gathering weeds. And he remembered that Wolhwa had not been close enough to help. She had been a good distance away, kneeling by another cluster of plants, and by the time he opened his mouth to call out, the boar was already nearly on him. She had not run. That was the first strange thing, turning it over now in the dark. She had simply stood, unhurried, the way she did everything, and started walking toward him. Not toward the boar exactly, just toward him. Slowly, as though there were no emergency at all. And the boar had stopped. It had been 3, maybe 4 strides from him, charging at full speed, and then it had simply stopped, swerved, and bolted in the opposite direction, crashing back through the undergrowth as though it had remembered, all at once, something far more frightening waiting behind it than anything in front. Neither of them had spoken of it afterward. He had opened his mouth once, on the walk home, and she had said something practical about the roots in her basket, and the moment had closed over the thing like water over a stone. He had let it close. He was not sure, lying here now, why he had let it close so easily. He thought of other things too, turning them over one by one in the dark, the way a man checks his pockets for something he's lost. The boulder, weeks ago, that he had watched her move aside from the garden path with one hand, believing herself unwatched, her face calm and far away, as though her thoughts were somewhere else entirely, while her body did something no woman's body should be able to do. The way she ate, or didn't. The careful arranging of food on her plate that made it look, from across the room, exactly like eating. The animals, every one of them. The way Dulceo's dog, who liked everyone, pressed itself flat against the far wall the moment she came near. He turned all of it over. The list did not get smaller by being examined. It only grew more specific. And then, almost against his will, his mind went somewhere else. Somewhere warmer, and in its own way, more unsettling. He thought of the 2 hours of conversation that afternoon she'd shown him the rare text. How she had argued a point he hadn't even known was arguable. How he had walked away from it feeling more alive than he had in months of running. He thought of her hand guiding his over the brush, the cold that had, for one strange moment, not been cold at all. He thought of the way she had held the flower shoes, as though she were holding something that might disappear if she gripped it too hard. He realized, lying there in the dark, that somewhere in these 21 days, without his permission, he had become happy. It was a strange thing to admit, even silently, even only to himself. He had passed the highest examination in Joseon. He had been given a calling from the king himself. He had spent half a year since then doing nothing but running from men who wanted him dead for telling the truth about men who deserved far worse than what they had planned for him. There had been no peace in any of that. There had been purpose, and then there had been only survival. He thought of the capital, the endless court politics, men who smiled to his face and worked against him in whispers, the loneliness of fighting alone for something he believed in. And then he thought of this, a mountain, a cottage, a woman who argued philosophy with him over rice and herbs. He had been happier here, hiding from the law, than he had ever been serving it. He let himself imagine, just for a moment, what it might be to simply stay. Not as a fugitive waiting for the danger to pass, but as something else. A life this small, a life this quiet. Days that began with herbs and ended with paintings of a mountain he was beginning, despite everything, to think of as his. The thought arrived with an ache he was not prepared for. A tenderness so sudden and so entirely unearned that he had to lie still for a moment and simply let it pass through him. He did not know this woman. He knew almost nothing true about her, if the list in his mind was to be believed. And yet some part of him, some part that had nothing to do with evidence or reason, felt as though he had known her for a very long time. Felt, absurdly, as though coming here, falling, half dead, onto her mountain, had not been an accident at all, but something closer to an arrival. It made no sense. He was a scholar. He believed in evidence, in following a thread of facts to wherever it honestly led. And the facts, lined up neatly in his mind, suggested something his reason did not want to look at directly. But the feeling, the warmth, the strange unearned peace of these 21 days refused to be argued away by the facts. It sat right alongside them, equally real, equally insistent, and he did not know what to do with two truths that could not occupy the same room, and yet somehow did. He realized finally that this was the actual reason he could not sleep. Not the boar, not the boulder, not the list. It was that he no longer knew which truth he was more afraid of. At some point in this circling, he became aware that the cottage had gone too quiet, even for sleep. He reached out of habit more than concern, toward the thin wall that separated his side of the room from hers. There was no sound of breathing on the other side. He sat up. The other sleeping mat, visible through the half-open partition, was empty. Smoothed flat, as though she had risen carefully, trying not to wake him. He told himself this meant nothing. She had mentioned, more than once, that she walked at night, that the dark and the quiet suited her in ways she never fully explained. He lay back down, instructing himself to let it go, to let her have whatever solitary hour she needed. But the question would not leave him alone now, lying on top of everything else he had just been turning over. Where does a woman go, alone, on a mountain, in the middle of the night? And why does she never leave a single footprint in the morning dew to prove she went anywhere at all? He rose, quietly, telling himself he only meant to step outside for air. The night was clear, the moon nearly full, throwing pale light across the yard and the dark tree line beyond it. He stood at the edge of the porch and let his eyes adjust. And for a moment, there was nothing. Only the mountain, only the silence, only his own ridiculous heartbeat too loud in his ears. Then, far off, near the tree line, he saw her. She was distant enough that he told himself immediately that he could be wrong, that the eyes play tricks at night, that distance and moonlight bend a shape into something it isn't. She was standing with both hands pressed against the trunk of an old pine, her head bowed, her whole body strangely rigid, as though she were holding herself in place by force. And behind her, low to the ground, pale in the moonlight, moving very slightly though there was no wind to move them, shapes, long, several of them, the unmistakable suggestion of tales. He did not move. He did not breathe. He stood at the edge of the porch with his hand still on the doorframe, and the warm, foolish happiness he had been turning over only minutes before sat in his chest beside this new, colder thing, and he found, to his own quiet horror, that neither one was willing to leave to make room for the other. That is where we leave them tonight. Junseo, standing frozen at his own doorway, caught between a happiness he didn't expect and a fear he can't yet name. Wolhwa, somewhere out there in the dark, holding back something 1,000 years in the making. What happens next, between the two of them, and to them is coming in episode 3. If you want to find out what happens to their story, please subscribe and like this video. Every subscribe, every like, genuinely gives me the strength to keep telling this story for you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in episode 3.
너의 이름만 바람에 흩어져 사람이 되고 싶던 내 마음은 너를 만나 처음 울었어 숨겨야 했던 나의 그림자 말하지 못한 9개의 밤 네가 내 손을 잡아준 순간 괴물이던 내가 꿈을 꾸었어